Let's be honest. How much money do I need to buy a house? Sounds like a simple question until you start Googling and end up staring at mortgage acronyms, interest rate charts, and maps covered in red and green blobs. Then you close the laptop, whisper, "Not today," and go back to scrolling. Let's fix that. You don't need a PhD in finance to figure out what it takes to buy a home where you live. You just need a clear framework, some realistic expectations, and a little bit of honesty about your income and lifestyle. This isn't going to be some fantasy about just stop drinking coffee and you'll own a house. This is about real numbers, real trade offs, and a plan that actually matches your state, your income, and your reality. Step 1. Forget the national headlines. Your state is its own planet. Every time you see a headline like average home price hits X, it's talking about some huge national average that combines everything from tiny Midwest towns to waterfront California mansions. That number is almost useless for your actual life. Housing is hyper-local. What it takes to buy, in a big coastal city, in a small southern town, in a Midwestern suburb, in a rural area, will be completely different, even if all four places are technically in the same country. So instead of obsessing over national stats, your first job is to get grounded in your market. What does a modest starter home cost in your area? What's a realistic neighborhood you'd actually live in? Are you aiming for a condo, townhouse, or single-family home? Your state sets the range, but your city and neighborhood set the actual target. You're not trying to buy a home in America. You're trying to buy one specific kind of home in one specific part of your state. That's the number all your calculations should orbit around. Step 2. The four numbers that actually matter. Buying a house feels overwhelming because people mix 20 different concepts together. Let's simplify. There are really four big numbers you need to care about: home price, what the house actually costs; down payment, what you pay up front; closing costs, all the lovely fees that show up at the finish line; monthly payment, what it costs you every single month to keep the house. Everything else, interest rates, loan types, taxes, is just stuff that shapes these four numbers. If you can wrap your head around these, you can figure out what it takes to buy where you live. Step 3. Home price. Choose a realistic target, not a dream Pinterest board. You don't need to know the price of every house in your state. That's how you end up overwhelmed and doing nothing. You need one thing: a reasonable starter home target. That usually means something like 2 to 3 bedrooms. Decent but not luxury neighborhood. Not brand new but not falling apart. Somewhere you could live for at least 5 to 7 years. In some states, that might mean $180,000. In others, $400,000. In some metro areas, starter homes are rude and start above $600,000. The point isn't to like the number, the point is to face it. Because once you have a rough target, you can work backwards into, okay, what do I actually need to pull this off? Let's call your realistic target price X. Keep that number in your head or write it down. Now we're going to break it apart. Step 4. Down payment. The myth, the options, and the trade-offs. If you grew up on old-school money advice, you probably heard, you need 20% down or you're irresponsible and the bank will personally judge your ancestors. In the real world, a lot of people are buying homes with far less than 20%. Here's the basic menu. Around 3% to 5% down common for many first-time buyers with conventional loans or certain programs. Lower upfront cost, but you'll pay PMI, private mortgage insurance, and have a higher monthly payment. Around 10% down, a nice middle ground if you can swing it. Less PMI cost, better monthly payment, 20% down or more. The classic standard. No PMI, lower monthly payment, more equity right away. Also known as I've been saving forever, so how much do you need? Take your target price, price X, and multiply. 3% of X equals low-end down payment. 5% of X equals more comfortable starter. Down payment 10 to 20% of X equals stronger position if you have time and income. For example, if your starter home target in your state is $300,000, 3% down equals $9,000, 5% down equals $15,000, 10% down equals $30,000, 20% down equals $60,000. Same house. Completely different upfront requirements. Here's the key. Lower down payment equals easier to get in, harder to carry each month. Higher down payment equals harder to get in, easier to carry each month. Neither is automatically right or wrong. It's about what your income, timeline, and stress levels can handle. Step 5. Closing costs. The part everyone conveniently forgets. Just when you've made peace with the down payment, the closing costs walk in. Closing costs are the collection of fees, taxes, and services needed to legally transfer the home, finalize the loan, and protect everyone involved. That can include appraisal inspection, title search and insurance, lender fees, recording fees, prepaid property taxes and insurance, attorney fees in some states. How much is this circus? A good rule of thumb is about 2% to 5% of the purchase price. Back to our $300,000 example, 3% of $300,000 equals $9,000. 4% of $300,000 equals $12,000. Very common ballpark. So if you were planning to put $15,000 down, 5% down payment, and your closing costs end up around $12,000, your real just to show up at the closing table number is $27,000 upfront. That's why people get blindsided. They save for the down payment and forget the closing costs. Then, right when they're excited, the lender hands them a little document that says, "Surprise, there's more." Sometimes you can negotiate seller credits, get some lender credits, roll certain costs into the loan, which raises the monthly, but it's always smarter to plan as if you'll need the full amount. If help shows up, great. If not, you're not scrambling. Step 6. Monthly payment, where reality hits your budget. You don't just need enough money to buy the house, you need enough money to keep it. That's where the monthly payment comes in. Most people think of the mortgage as just principal and interest. In reality, your monthly payment usually includes principal, paying back the loan amount to interest, paying the lender for the privilege of borrowing property taxes, varies a lot by state and local area homeowners insurance to protect the property PMI, extra insurance if your down payment is low. Sometimes HOA fees if you're in a condo chuck a subdivision. Together, this is often called PITI, Principal, Interest, Taxes, Insurance. Here's why your state matters so much. You might live in a state with cheaper homes but higher property taxes, or a state with more expensive homes but lower taxes, or an area with high insurance costs, think storms, fires, floods. Same priced home in 2 states, very different monthly payment because of taxes and insurance alone. This is where online mortgage calculators become your best friend. Plug in your target price, price X, your expected down payment, a realistic interest rate, an estimate for taxes and insurance in your area, and see what the monthly looks like. Now the uncomfortable but necessary part, does that number fit your actual income? Step 7, the affordability rule. That actually keeps you sane. Lenders might approve you for a terrifyingly high number. They're looking at what their formulas say you can afford. You need to look at what your stress level says you can afford. A common guideline is, try to keep your total housing payment, PITI, around 25% to 30% of your gross monthly income. That's not a law, it's just a sanity line. For example, if your household makes $6,000 per month before taxes, 25% of that equals $1,500, 30% of that equals $1,800. So if your potential mortgage payment comes out to $2,400 a month, sure, the bank might stamp it. But you are the one living the no extra money ever life. This is where some people get stuck. The house they want blows past the 30% guideline. The house that fits the guideline doesn't match their expectations, so they stretch. Stretching can work for a while, but it leaves very little room for savings, emergencies, repairs, kids' vacations, or anything spontaneous that makes life feel like more than work, bills sleep. A house you can barely afford isn't a blessing, it's a pretty cage. Step 8. How your state changes the game. Let's talk state differences without throwing a million charts at you. Here's what your state can dramatically influence. Median home price. This is the obvious one. Some states are just more expensive. Property taxes. You can have a moderately priced house with painful taxes. Insurance costs, storms, wildfires, crime rates all impact your premium. Closing cost patterns. Some states have higher average fees than others. The same $300,000 house in one state, lower property tax, lower insurance, comfortable monthly payment. In another state, high property tax, high insurance monthly payment that feels like a prank. So when you're asking, how much money do I need to buy a house where I live? What you're really asking is, given my state's prices, taxes, and insurance, what does it take to get in and stay in comfortably? That's why copying your cousin's plan from a totally different region doesn't work. They might have bought a home with the same income as you for half the price, or they might need double. Your plan has to be customized to your state's financial ecosystem, not someone else's zip code. Step 9. The gap. When your numbers don't match your state. So maybe you do the math and realize home prices in your state are here up arrow. Your current financial situation is here down arrow. Congrats. You've just discovered what millions of people are quietly feeling, the gap. It's not fun, but it is useful. Because once you know the gap exists, you can decide what to do about it instead of walking around with vague frustration. You basically have 4 levers. Adjust the house. Smaller property, different neighborhood condo or townhouse instead of single family, slightly farther from a high-demand area. Adjust the timeline. Give yourself 2 to 5 years to build savings, build your credit to get better rates, wait out certain market conditions, adjust the income skill up into higher-paying roles. Side hustle or second income stream, career moves, promotions, certifications, AI tech upskilling. Adjust the location, move to a more affordable part of your state, or in some cases, a different state entirely. None of these are magic. All of them are trade-offs, but at least now you know what levers exist instead of feeling like the system is just randomly insulting you. Step 10. So, how much do you actually need? Let's put it all together in one simple framework you can reuse or even pause the video and calculate with. Pick a realistic home price in your area. Look up starter homes, not dream mansions. Call this price X. Choose your ideal down payment percentage 3 to 5% if you're just trying to enter the market. 10 to 20% if you want more safety and lower payments. Calculate down payment equals X times your percent. Estimate your closing costs. Use 3 to 4% of the purchase price as a planning number. Calculate closing costs approximately X times 0.03 to 0.04. Add them together for your upfront goal. Total upfront approximately. Down payment plus closing costs. Test your monthly payment. Use a mortgage calculator. Plug in price X. Down payment, interest rate, property taxes, and insurance for your area. Ask, does this fit within approximately 25 to 30% of my household income without making me miserable? That's your real answer. Not a generic, you need $100,000 in savings. Not, you'll never afford anything. And not, just keep renting forever. A clear, numbers-based snapshot for your state, your income, your reality. The real goal, clarity, not instant ownership. You might run the numbers and realize, I'm closer than I thought. Or you might run them and say, okay, I've got some work to do. Both outcomes are better than living in confusion. Once you know your target price range, your upfront number, your safe monthly payment, you can turn own a home someday from an emotional dream into a practical plan. Maybe that plan is 2 years away. Maybe it's 5. Maybe it includes a career pivot or a side business or a different city. That's okay. Buying a house is one of the biggest financial moves most people ever make. It deserves more than vibes and guesswork. You don't control interest rates or housing markets. You do control your knowledge, your decisions, and your strategy. And the moment you stop asking, is it even possible, and start asking, what exact numbers do I need to hit in my state? You've already taken the first real step toward your front door. Thanks for sticking with me all the way to the end. We just broke down what it really takes to buy a home where you live. Not in theory, not in some other market, but in your actual state. We talked about picking a realistic price range, how much you might need for a down payment, why closing costs can't be ignored, and how to check if that monthly payment fits your income without turning your life into a stress marathon. If there's one thing I want you to leave with, it's this. You don't have to guess anymore. You can know your numbers, see the gap, and build a plan on your own timeline and in a way that fits your reality. If this helped you see the path a little clearer, like this video to boost it in the algorithm. Subscribe to Virtual Finance Navigator for more real-world money breakdowns. Comment your state and where you are in your home buying journey. And share this with someone who keeps saying, I want a house, but I don't even know where to start.